Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Observable Flutter. My name is Craig Labenz, and I'm your host. And today, I'm excited to talk about yet another state management package, though I'm genuinely pretty excited about this one because it combines two different concepts that I think highly of on both ends. So I have not looked at the docs. I have not looked at anything. I'm coming in totally fresh, other than I'm familiar with both concepts separately. So I am excited. But before we get too much further into it, do remember, folks, this is the Flutter community. We know what that means. All right. Today's guest needs no introduction, and yet I am going to spend all of your time on one anyway. Randal Schwartz, a 3 or 4 time guest, which certainly puts him as chip leader in the clubhouse. He is almost certainly the most frequent guest to join me on this here stream. So Randal, I'm really excited to have you on again. Would you like to say a few more words to further introduce yourself?
Thank you for bringing me back on the show. I spent a lot of time sitting in the comments talking through most of your other shows, but it's nice being on screen again. Of course, I have my own show on Wednesdays, the Hump Day Q&A stuff that we've been doing for 4 or 5 years now. But I am a Flutter GDE. In fact, this month marks my 8th year. So right back from the beginning of the very program. I wrote my first code for hire in 1977, so I've been coding for a while. I've had a wonderful multiple decade career doing all sorts of wonderful things. Of course, got into Dart as soon as I heard about it, so that was even a few years before Flutter. And then I got into Flutter when I first heard about that. First saw Hot Reload, I went, I want to do this. So I've been full-time Dart and Flutter for the last 8 years, and really been having a great time at it.
Nice. Yeah, I think a relatable story in many ways. You're ahead of me on decades. I was realizing the other day that I started programming 20 years ago, but I don't think I could count my career as starting then, because I didn't start programming until my 3rd year of college, which is wild to think back on as being true. But as a 40-year-old man now, that puts me at 20 years programming. So I can now say decades, plural,
Yes.
as well. Yeah. All right. So,
I was coding for hire before you were born.
which is a crazy thought. That's wild. But
Most people I meet now, I'm the old dude in the corner now. So yeah, I would have a gray beard, but I can't grow a beard very well yet. So and that
well,
means
maybe when
probably
you
won't
grow
ever.
up.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, Randal, you have taken it upon yourself to merge two concepts, one of which very long-standing in the Flutter community, BLOC, standing for Business Logic Component. It was a concept that originally came out of just honestly kind of a one-off experiment internally at Google, and they published the idea. The community has since picked up the torch and really run with it. To me, it feels like Flutter's variant of like Redux out of the JavaScript community and that pattern, which I used while I was a React developer before discovering Flutter, which is why BLOC has always felt very homey, very comfortable to me. And then the other concept is Signals, also out of the JavaScript community. First, Rody Davis, a friend of the pod, also ported that to Dart. You've been a big fan of it, and now you're combining the two things. So what led you to start this project?
Well, the code name, which I think describes it pretty instantly about the differences, is that it's the rigor of BLOC with the flex and the speed of Signal. Now, I've been a long admirer of BLOC, but I never liked the fact that it was streams underneath, because for me, streams are the wrong mechanism for event management, in the sense that and this is also leading to where I became attracted to RiverPod, is that you don't need a sequence of things between frames to ripple through your system. You want to only know the latest value. You don't care what the values were 5 seconds and 10 seconds ago. You only care that right now it's 47. And so
Okay.
all you need for state management, for observable data to be able to trigger when things happen, is a pub sub solution that gives you one level value. And that's what RiverPod does behind the scenes. It uses a provider listenable to do that. So basically you have people updating the value on one side and consumers on the other side, but it's only one level deep. It's never a stream. And that gives a lot of advantages, which is why I've really enjoyed RiverPod all these years. That I have a composable way of hooking things together that don't have these asynchronous streams that have to be managed. The stream protocol in general is really kind of awkward. The way you have to use a stream controller to set up the head end of it, and the way you consume it, you have to decide whether it's a single subscription or multi-subscription ahead of time. There's a lot of things that streams seem to be awkward about, and I just never was really excited about that. When Felix created the block library, he chose streams because at that time, that I'm pretty sure that was like the best choice for getting to do what he wanted to do. Signals was long before Signals, so we couldn't have that. But there was some features already, like we did have listenables and things like that would be only one level deep, but they were also locked into Flutter, of all things, even though they weren't really Flutter related. They were locked into the Flutter kit. And I'm sure, again, reverse engineering some of this, I'm sure Felix said, well, I want to be able to put it in a Dart environment as well. So I'm going to have to invent my own way of doing it. And hey, there are streams. We can just use streams instead. But every stream add, it has to take a micro task at least to get to the next thing. So if you have a stream that's watching another stream that's combining those two and then putting a third one up, every one of those is another microtask hop. And if you get them sort of out of order, like you update one thing that updates two other things, you then have synchrony problems. So I've been watching Block thinking, I really like the rigor of it. If you look at what a qubit is, it's basically a very controlled observable piece of data that only has methods coming in to mutate it, and you can only observe it and tell when it changes. So there's no way to directly update the state. You're updating the state entirely through its
you
interface.
do message passing essentially.
Yeah, right.
That's
and
the higher
level version of that, which is block signals, which is where he's getting all the overall technology from. And that's a very popular package for JavaScript. And the things he added were things like, the things that got added because preact signals changed were things like a signal model, which allows you to put more elaborate things inside of it and still call it a sort of an overall signal, sort of like a signal box that you can put things in. And that ended up making some of my work that I'm about to describe a little bit easier, but I don't want to get too much into the weeds here. But so I said, wait a second, block, the generic block is really just a pattern. It's talking about how you can send events and get states back. And there's basic protocol for that. The fact that it was streams is just a choice of implementation. So I had been saying for the last maybe 3 or 4 months, would it be possible to rebuild the block with all the rigor of it and all the interfaces of it, but using something like signals as the fabric of it? And that's what BlocSignal is. It is the entire protocol of Block, everything you're familiar with, every single class except for one, and every single method except for 2 that relate to streams, I've implemented in BlocSignal. So everything you know about Block, you already know BlocSignal about. And because signals are the fabric, then at the endpoints, you can say, give me the state of this block or of this qubit, and that returns a read-only signal that you can subscribe to, that you can run computed on, that you can have block builders with, things like that. So it's a normal signal at that level, which means you get the entire extra ecosystem that signals have, which is compatibility with streams, compatibility with listenables, compatibility with value, listenables and everything. So it's really this sweet spot, the best of both worlds. That's why I've been really excited about it. I'm only so how the current project came about was 3 weeks ago. I just said finally, because I was looking at V7 signals, and I said, let me just throw this at anti-gravity and see what can you do with this right now. And I was doing it. You got to be careful what you ask. Like, if you say, is it possible to do this? The way it answers you is by doing it and then saying, yes, it's possible.
I've just proven by experiment.
Yes, yeah, and that's what it did. It actually created the whole basic framework in about 20 minutes. And that it had a block. It was built around signals. It had a constructor for it that you could create sub effects and computage right in the constructor. And it's all this is garbage collected properly. Everything. There's no dispose in pretty much the entire system that you have to do if you use the standard classes and stuff. No dispose. It takes care of itself. This is way cool. Imagine subscribing to something and then not having to say dispose that subscription. It just takes care of itself when the other thing goes out of scope. It's super. It's very super. In these 3 weeks, I have accomplished an amazing amount since then. Once I got that first cut, I went, how much further can I take this? And so I used anti-gravity almost entirely in just the hub. So I wasn't using the IDE. I was just using the hub, telling it instructions. And it was really good at, 100% test coverage, 100% documentation, 160-point score on all 10 packages that I've created. But let's talk about that ecosystem then. So we have, and actually, if you could pull up a page for the pub on BlocSignals.
Yeah, sure.
And then you can
real quick here.
Actually pull up BlocSignal.dev because you can scroll down to the bottom and all the packages are right there. So BlocSignal.dev.
Okay, I've got that. Let me share my screen here. Gonna do a little screen juggling.
And hopefully nobody at home is hearing this sawing sound that I'm participating in today. House is under construction. Yes, there's okay. There's also a secret sort of back end message too. I'm a rail fan. I love trains. So BlocSignal is also literally the block signal of a train. So all of my artwork has been about trains and about switches and tracks and stuff. So
BlocSignal is a term
it's that little green
train
line.
land.
The green, yeah. It's block BLOCK, obviously, but that's the signal for the next block. It's to tell you whether the block's occupied or not. So that's, and they also used to use semaphores, which were things that had a little arm that moved up, but now it's pretty much just color.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is still conceptually a semaphore, right? In that you can only one train can make it red.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to also try to make it red.
Perfect. If you scroll down to all the packages at the bottom, that's a live block qubit on that page. But here we go. So so BlocSignals is the Dart version. BlocSignals Flutter has the added hooks. And on all of this, I'm trying to mimic the naming of the entire block ecosystem. So again, if you're coming from block, this is all just going to be drop-in familiar.
Right.
So the names of these two packages are just the same as block, but you used to add signals everywhere. I have BlocSignals Jasper, so I can have Jasper components that can be reactive based on BlocSignals in your Dart app. I have BlocSignals RiverPod. Interoperability. A provider in RiverPod can become consumable by BlocSignals, and a block signal can be consumable. So I have this whole ecosystem, 100% documented, 100% tested, examples for everything. But one of the things I wanted to show was just how close it is to block. And I can do that by actually mutating the counter app. I'm going to take the classic counter app and use anti-gravity to change it to all the different ways you can use qubits and blocks, if you don't mind doing that for a demo. So just need to bring me up. Okay,
yeah.
let me
okay.
I will in a second.
I'll take my screen out.
Screen 2, I think it is. Share. And I'm going to have to pop over to the other screen. Once this, I won't be able to see you. But are you getting the screen now? Is it popped up?
That's a small mercy for you.
Okay. Let's see. Let me get over there. Okay. So is the text big enough here? Can you see that?
Bigger would be good, I think.
Okay. Let me do one more Command plus here. Hopefully that works. Wait, maybe if I click on this, then I could do that. Okay. Better?
Well, let's start typing and see.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is, this is just a nifty directory. I'm running anti-gravity. I'm on flash 3.6 flash low. I've been using 3.6 flash medium, and that's kind of about right. But for the stuff we're doing, it's really simple. So I'm just going to leave it on low so it gets quick things. So first thing I'm going to ask, oh yeah, and we have AI tools for everything. I have like 9 different AI skills relating to BlocSignal. What skills do you have about Dart, Flutter, Signal, BlocSignal? Okay, and it should start up. And of course, this is going to be when AI fails me, right?
Naturally.
That's always the fun. Yes. There we go. All right. So tons of stuff, and all this is all my skills. Well, let's see. I've only written 5 lines of code for this entire project, so that tells you how much of stuff is. I've written 13 Dev2 articles. Well, I didn't write it. Jim and I wrote it all, but it's pretty good. So we got skills using BlocSignals, Flutter. We've got, and of course, the Signals ecosystem has its own skills. And we have the Dart and Flutter skills. It's got Kaizel and stuff in there. Okay. But what I want to do is say, create the standard, counter app here. Flutter. I should probably put Flutter there. Standard Flutter.
Yeah, it would probably, I feel like it would know that context, but it's certainly good to.
Flutter. Let's see if it figures that out. Okay.
Flutier.
And the reason, and the reason I'm doing it this way is because it will give you green and red diffs as we make the changes. It's very slick. Let's see. So we'll go to main.dart here, and it's also testing it over and over again. Let's see.
So what do you mean you get the green and red, like just the get diff that it shows?
Yeah, the diff that it shows, because I'm going to be modifying this to fix it, to have everything. Oh, I know what I do. I get rid of this.
So sorry, what you said? The reason I did it this way, so you get that. What was this way? Did I miss something?
I'm in anti-gravity IDE, and I'm telling anti-gravity to make changes, and so it's going to show me to help me review what it changes. But the nice thing is it's also great for a demo. It's because watch, for example,
maybe I'm a dinosaur. This is still just what I use all the time. So got it.
Yeah. Okay. So, so what I'm going to do is say, get rid of the comments. And this first change, as you'll see, then the green-red thing that I'm about to talk about. So there we go. See? So since it got rid of all those, that's all red, right? So you can tell what it changed. So we're going to be doing a series of those, making this into more and more BlocSignal. So first accept changes, so it goes all green again. Okay. Yeah. So that's all plain now, right? Okay, so this is the standard counter app. I don't need to describe this to anybody. We've all seen this and deleted it. How many times? I think it's probably the most commonly deleted app ever. I think it definitely wins for that. Okay, so
it could be.
Yeah. So let's see. Change this app so that it uses a qubit signal. All the classes, they just have wherever they had block or qubit, I just add signal to the end. So it's real easy to do. The qubit signal. Okay. And here we go. Tick, tick, tick. It's loading in the skill for that, you notice. And it's changing the code. And there we go. So now we can go up here. So it added the BlocSignal import. Oh, it's still fixing it because this isn't the right protocol. It gets that one a little wrong but it's allow run. It's always allow. Submit. Okay, I wonder why I couldn't. Oh, it's going into the repo to try to figure out what the thing is. Apparently I need some better, yeah, because here's what it needed to do. It needed to have initial state there. Okay, so this is a counter qubit. Okay, and it's very close to what a qubit would be in the block package, in that we have a method here, and it's calling emit. So if you're familiar again with qubits, this is stock qubits, except it has the word signal in there, and it has to be initial state to the state. Okay, and then down here we have a block signal provider on counter qubit. Again, very close to a block provider, same syntax, same create, same child, all that's the same. Okay. Now, we don't need a stateful widget anymore since the counter actually is no longer part of the state of the widget. So, of course, that gets rid of a bunch of stuff here. And, of course, that changes it to title instead of widget title. But here we go. Again, we got rid of this text and dollar counter here. And now we have a block signal builder inside. So that's going to consume the block signal, excuse me, the counter qubit signal that's on the context. So it's searching up the context to get this, yes. And so now we get the count here. Again, very similar to Block Builder. And there it is. It's being used just as that. Now, here's the cool thing about this. This dollar count in here like this is being noticed by the framework, by some secret wrapper in this BlocSignal builder, such that it's a subscription. So just by mentioning the value, it's automatically subscribing it so that if it changes, this gets triggered.
Can we see that wrapper?
Yeah, let's see. How can we get to that easily? Well, I think we'll just do this.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a fun little piece to inspect how that works.
Right. So BlocSignal Builder, that's the constructor for it. And the way it works here. So what it's doing is it's basically creating a block inside, effective block. And it still has Signal Builder in here. Yeah. And I don't know all of this. Yeah. But
okay, yeah. So it passes through the effective block.state.value. So that's the count, and that's the typed, value. So in this case, an integer. So let's look in the signal builder.
It went somewhere. Oh, it went over here. No, let's see. I clicked on it. Yeah, signal builder takes a builder.
I think signal builder is that what we're okay? It is nice. All right. So
right.
Oh, this just calls the builder. So I think can you go back one file to when we were looking at, here. So I suspect that you're getting a subscription even if you don't use effective block.state.value. I think the subscription is coming on line 36 and 37, and you could actually not use the state. Now that would be its own very weird situation. Why are you even using a BlocSignal builder and setting all of this up only to not use the state? Right. So I think you're getting the subscription automatically, which is a tiny detail, but I was wondering, how did you do the thing that you said you did?
That's even more interesting when we're talking about the constructors, because the constructors had to layer an extra effects block around the outside of it to make sure that it captured all the computeds and the effects that are created inside the constructor had to have a way of having an exit path. So that worked out pretty nice too. Let's get back up to the code here. Okay, and then so of course now we have, and again, very familiar. If you're used to using qubits and blocks, this is all the normal stuff. There's your dot increment call right there. So that's how different it was. Oh, it even did a test. Let's see if I can find the test. Let's see, signal builder dot dart. No, those are tests. Oh, because they're not. Oh, see, it should be in here. Let me open this back up. Test, because it's been updating the widget tests. Nope. So actually nothing changed there because we've only changed the way you're getting the data. So the widget's still doing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Widget
so
test doesn't carry yet.
Yeah, widget test doesn't carry. We'll update it later when we start doing more blocks and stuff though. So let's get rid of that side panel again. And I'm not used to having such a little space. Okay. Let's take changes away again. So now what we have is it's like I just said, it's the counter app, but instead of using, so there's no set state anymore, it's just running because the qubit is updating. So let's try something different. Let's add a couple of methods. Let's add decrement and reset. Add decrement and reset to the qubit. Okay, so it's working away. And what we see, yep, there we go. Two more things with emits, right? Okay.
That looks right to me.
Very much like block. All the only things that you got to notice are things like state value and this initial state. So that it had to be slightly different because dot state already means something to the block signal and qubit signal. We wanted that to be the actual signal that's underneath. And again, and down here, of course, we've got now our three-way choices now.
And more buttons. Love it.
Yep. And so looking good, right? Okay, so let's accept that. But what I want to do is this is doing it using context to get down, okay? But we could also say there's 6 different ways to do dependency injection in Flutter. I actually wrote an article about that. Let's use globals as our injection. So change this to be a global, change the counter qubit to be injected. No, I don't want to say injected, to be accessed as a global. And then we'll do another version in a second here. So now what it's going to do is it's going to, when time passes, tick, 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 tick.
Tick, tock, tick, tock.
There we go. Oh, so see now, there. So it creates the counter qubit. It's a global, right? Down here, we don't need the block signal provider anymore. We just say to this block signal builder, the block or qubit that you're using is this counter qubit. And now the count comes out that way. So this is accessing it as a global. So I got complaints as I was talking about this to people. I said, well, and it's mimicking block and stuff. They go, why are you doing that? Because I hate context. And I go, no, there's 6 different ways to do dependency injection. I see. Context is only one of them.
Yep.
Look, so here's
this is a little more of a river pod way here.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you can speak block signal with many different accents. The nice thing is that
I like it.
Look at what this did. Look at what this did to the on press. That's a tear off, right? So no parens, no anything. It's just simple that way. It looks really
nice
clean.
and clean.
Yeah. Okay. So let's accept those, and now let's inject it. Now let's inject it as a parameter to the widget constructor. And this is going to make it easier to test and everything too. But so what we're going to do is that widget now is going to get the counter qubit as its parameter. So we no longer have the global, right? We do a myapp that's going to call myapp now has a parameter called counter qubit. We create the counter qubit in this call, and now that's available as counter qubit down in the body of our code, which actually didn't change at all, right? It's all counter qubit anyway.
Yeah.
So that's a whole different way, right? And that's easier to test because it's not a global, right? You just inject it as a constructor.
Yep.
Pretty cool
Yep.
so far. Any
Pretty
questions in
cool
the
so
audience?
far. I've
Anybody's
been
yelling at?
answering them as we're going
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, some folks have been asking questions, but largely so far it's stuff that you kind of covered in the first few minutes. So I've been directing folks
Okay.
back to the top of the stream.
Cool deal. Okay, now let's start getting blocks in here. So let's change this to a block. Oh wait, a block signal. Otherwise, I might make a block out of it. Change the counter. To a block signal. Still injecting it with the constructor Bram. Okay. So now we're finally going to get the block signals. Okay, and again, this should look relatively familiar if you've been doing block. Here's my sealed class. Here's my events. Increment, decremented, reset. Here's my dispatch. All these white nice ons should look really familiar for everybody familiar with block. Standard stuff, right? We get the event. We get the function for emit that we can use. Okay. And down
So
here.
I have a question here, but I don't know if I'm going to be spoiling a future punchline of yours. So I'm going to hold off on it and let you keep cooking. But just know that I have a question.
Oh, good. So again, now we're using a counter block, and down here, again, we pass the counter block. That's it. So again, the block signal builder works the same way, right? Yep. Whether it was a qubit or a block, because a qubit is a subclass of block. Actually, they're both subclasses of a parent class, but that doesn't matter. So again, here we have our dot adds. See, just like we have. Again, this should look really familiar. This is block. It's just block signal. Now, here's the thing to start thinking about. With a block signal, or with a standard block built on streams, this dot add doesn't happen right away. This dot add goes into the microtask queue, and then after you're done painting, you've got to now go through all the microtask queues, and it's going to keep making more events until eventually that sort of sorts out. But that means that if I, in a standard block app, in my on-pressed, if I said add the counter decremented, and then I looked at the current value, in block, it would be the old value. In block signal, it's the new value because this add is synchronous all the way back into the qubit and all the way back out for the event. So there's no change there's no microtask slop. That's it. It's all synchronous. And think about that in terms of how many times you've had to write a wait in your tests to basically say wait until this ripples all the way through. No, this is all synchronous testing. It's also faster. We've got benchmarks that show something like 3 to 5 times the speed of both RiverPod and block, because it's just doing so much less. It's just really, really fast to get in there. Okay. So now let's focus. Go ahead.
A couple of thoughts on this, because I think it's worth maybe spending a little time pondering these stream changes, because streams both giveth and they taketh away. So they don't only taketh away. One of the nice. So first, the thing that you're talking about a lot is the microtasks. And the synchronous testing that you just mentioned, I think, is a quite big deal. I have written many block tests in my life that where you really do have to any test that involves a stream. There's the expect later kind of stuff. You have to expect, like, I want these 3 events to come out in order, and those are brittle tests, and they break very quickly as you continue to develop your app. So getting rid of those things, I think, is an undeniable plus. So I think that's very, very, very cool. Another thing that you've been talking about is like the micro tasks. And the benchmarks, I believe, because you do go through this extra machinery there. I also suspect that in most cases for a running production app, it's not actually. I would be surprised if there was a big behavioral difference in the final Flutter app, because just thinking about Dart code.
Yeah.
The rule of asynchrony in Dart code is that asynchronous code can't interrupt synchronous code. And the build flow is all synchronous. So even when we add a synchronous method here, and the block updates its state synchronously, and essentially is going to eventually call set state synchronously, what that is going to mean for us still is just that a request to build another frame is sent to the engine, and the next time the OS's vsync ticks, then the engine will begin to build a frame, which is almost certainly going to be the same time that the engine was going to build a frame if there was a stream.
Yes.
And further, let's say you ran you've got 100 ads because a bunch of stuff is happening on, maybe it's a flame game, or, something really crazy situation where you've got a lot of ads happening. And so they're all synchronous or they're all stream events.
Yeah.
Again, you can call set state 1,000 times. And if you call set state 1,000 times quickly enough, you still just get one frame. So in some senses, and again, I'm not doubting the benchmarks, because I can actually, it's very easy to imagine that just a synchronous function call is of course going to be more efficient than looping through all the VM machinery that powers streams. Though I do suspect that the really big win that a developer will feel, if you've got a block developer who decides to jump to BlocSignal, is the ergonomics of getting rid of the streams. But streams also giveth, like I mentioned, right? You can dedupe streams. And I wonder if you're doing any of this, where one thing that Block does is if the same state comes out of the stream twice in a row, it does not request a new frame, and it does not mark anything dirty, and it doesn't rebuild anything.
This is dedupe by default, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I don't have to do anything at all. I can override the equals method in a lot of places and force it to be, as long as if it's two different objects, I'm going to use identity as my test, or I can just use false as my test, and then it will emit no matter what you throw in.
Yeah.
But this is automatically dedupe. Well, here's one advantage though. So here's the tests that it wrote for this counter block. Do you see any awaits at all? No.
Yeah, that's nice. It's really nice.
Just pure Dart. So
that's super nice.
I'm on a large project, and it takes about 4 minutes to run the test suite. And that 4 minutes is 4 minutes that I can do nothing else except read my mail. So getting the speed of the tests faster. That's why I wanted to make sure it made one of these tests so you could see, no awaits. And yet it's testing all the functionality, everything that's going on in that counter block. And we have that all for free. All right, so there's that point. Now, let me do a little bit of fine tuning to show you also some other cool things. So here we have the traditional on. And I originally wasn't going to implement it this way. I was going to just use an on event and dispatch on it, because that's the equivalent. But then I realized, no, I want this to be exactly the way Block is in every possible way. So you can just walk from one system to the other, and even have AI. We actually have a whole skill called migration that shows how it is in Block, how it is in BlocSignal, so that you can just migrate it with your AI. And I've done that on multiple projects already now. From signals to BlocSignal, from RiverPod to BlocSignal, we've got all those pathways written up as skills. The skills are amazing. The skills just really, really help out. So we've got these ons, but we're not taking advantage of the fact that we have a sealed class. There's no
the question I was mentioning earlier.
Right. So here we go. Watch this. Change the on to, see, we got, wait, let's do accept all here. So we make sure it's all clean.
Yeah,
There
see,
we go.
this, I
Change the on
think, the change that you're
to,
about to do here, I have never noticed and maybe Felix has added this to documentation for BlockSense because I've understood how Block works for a very long time and haven't read the documentation. So maybe I'm about to put my foot in my mouth. But
there you go.
I have always wanted this to be the official recommendation.
Look at this.
This
Switch
is
case.
how it should be. Yes.
But
I
wait,
like
there's
this.
more. But wait, there's
Ooh,
more. Dart 3
order
added.
now.
No, let's see, what else did it change? Didn't change anything else down here. No, okay, so it's just this up here, right? So let me say accept. I want to take it one more step. You see that repetition of emit, emit, emit?
I do.
Guess what it's going to happen here? Change that to a switch expression.
I love how it just knows what that is.
Look at the elegance of this. Emit, switch, event. List your events, return a state value.
Now, admittedly, in my opinion, this only works with an incredibly simple representation of state, right? If you've got like an actual profile page with lots of different data coming in and rich things like
Go check the. We can check the source code of the Minesweeper, because there's a very complex state for that goes through multiple steps, and so
yeah,
it's doing copy widths where that's a state value there,
yeah,
and so it can update the state in complex ways because it just needs to run something and it's getting a value passed in. So
So
yeah, no, I mean, go ahead.
let me pick your brain on a thought here. I've been using Block since like 6 to 9 months after I got into Flutter, and have never looked back because I love it, because I used Redux before, as mentioned. Like no diss at all to Riverpod. I love Remy, I love Riverpod. I just got comfortable with Redux before Flutter. So, but what I've always loved is to mix in a little Remy magic to my block and use freezed for both the state and the events. Do you like that pattern?
It's certainly possible with this. I've used freezed on some projects, but I don't all automatically reach for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my absolute go-tos. I've got I'm a freezed maximalist.
Okay, now let's do this. Add hydration to shared preferences for the counter. Watch how little this changes it. Got a skill for hydration.
Nice.
It's adding
the dependency. Yeah.
So it's adding Dart hydrate, blah, 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 right? And shared preferences. And now we just changed BlocSignal to hydrated BlocSignal. Okay. Notice it doesn't have a to JSON and from JSON. That is cool.
You're saying
it uses them, but we're providing defaults. If your data type is one of the simple ones, we already provide the to JSON and from JSON for all the simple ones. You only have to write it if it's more complex than int or bool or null or string or a list of those or a map of those.
Which, to be fair, it almost always will be. But
yeah,
what do you mean you provide them? Because it looks like Gemini added them here.
Well, I mean, it's buried inside hydrated BlocSignal.
So what am I seeing on lines 29 and 32?
20. Oh, wow. Why did it do that? Okay, it didn't need to do that. It actually would have.
That's why I was confused.
Wait, okay. Why did you add the to JSON? We need more better skills, I guess. Isn't that the default? Of course, I'm also using low, and it might just not see that. It'll probably go, oh, yeah, sorry. Allow redux this path. Oh, it's reading in my lib again too. Come on. Just use the skills. Just use the, yeah, right. A minute.
So what we're seeing here, that to JSON and from JSON is essentially a Gemini error not realizing
Yes.
what the package offers. Got it.
Yes. So I'm letting it. There we go. There. You got rid of them, and that's still going to work because again, that's something that didn't exist in hydrated block. Hydrated block required to JSON and from JSON all the time, but I went. I'm tired of writing the one for int. I'm tired of writing the one for, trying to get that. So I just said, well,
wait, how often do you have a block where the state is actually that simple? Like, is that a realistic thing?
Counters and stuff. Occasionally, I have mostly little demo programs. So
okay.
There are a lot of things you do in a demo program that you'd never do in real life, and so they have to have trivial examples for stuff like that. Yeah. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I am. Slightly.
Yep. So that's an example of hydrated. We could do a lot of other examples. I think probably we should look at the source code to Minesweeper. Let me see how I would pull that up. Do you have any more things you want me to try, given that I've gotten this?
I suppose we could go through the academic exercise of running the app and seeing the hydration work. We could also just imagine it because it's fairly straightforward.
Let's see. I don't want to run it on my phone. Let's run it on Chrome, and let's see if we have a good launch. I should hit debug in main. That's usually the easiest way to get that to go. Okay, and I have to remember to drag my browser window over once it shows up.
Yep, that'll be important. You don't want to pull a me and just run like 5+ minutes of stream.
Right.
Either muted.
Now I'm doing this.
Yeah, with the wrong thing on the screen, and you look back and chat is like 900 messages of, dude, we can't see what you're doing.
Oh, and so it has debug messages. And notice it says counterblock.state. We put a default message that makes sense. Unlike signals, which is always null, we have default messages for everything we create that's based on the runtime type.
So a question there, what's the one before the pipe?
That's the first signal. So the first signal ever created.
Counts the signals.
It's just an arbitrary integer, just to make sure that you're seeing different things. Let's see. I got to figure out how to get that over there. How about here?
So that's going to say 2 after you increment.
Yeah, as soon as I figure out how to get the browser that just got launched, that's this one over here.
This one goes here. That one goes there.
Exactly.
Pop quiz. Who knows what movie that's from?
I do. I saw that movie 80 times in the theater.
I would have bet. If you told me you didn't know, I would have thought that you're either lying or the real Randall is tied up in a basement somewhere.
Exactly. I don't know why. I'm not seeing a Chrome pop up anywhere correctly. Oh, it's right here. It's already here.
But a snake, it would have bit you. You're having the opposite problem that I'm having, where you are sharing the thing, but you think you're not.
Right. So here we go. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. And if we looked at, see if I can do this.
Check those logs.
Yep.
Oh, see, it says 1 before that each time still. So I'm confused what the 1 is.
That's the first signal created. It's a global.
Signal. Interesting.
This is a log signal by default. Yes.
I have been thinking of signal as almost like a message, like an event out of block.
No, this is the signal
they come and go.
Signal package does this. It automatically logs in debug mode. It actually turns it off for production, but the default is that you get these log messages. Okay, now, so let's reload this page.
Well, don't reload it on 0 because that won't prove
anything. I know, that's no test, right? But every time this is also updating, this is updating my shared preferences, by the way, too. So let's reload.
Right. That's what this is going to prove to us.
See? Boom.
Hey, let's go.
Isn't that great? Isn't that great? So
Pretty
hydration's
nice.
working. Yep.
Pretty nice.
Okay. Let's see. What else can I talk about?
Well, you
So,
mentioned checking some Minesweeper source.
oh yeah. Okay. Let's see how I can bring that
But
up.
here's the real question. Is your
Yeah.
Minesweeper game better than the one that I slapped together on a couple live streams several
I
months ago?
I think I sent you a mail on that. I was actually building it from scratch with anti-gravity while you were working, but I built it with
Yeah, you
signals
were.
the first. So the one you're about to see is converted from. Let's see if I can get to the right repo for this here. Let's get this stopped. It's not working. Okay, come on, and let's see if Control R, BlocSignal. Don't look at the other names. Everybody, don't look. There it is. There it is. Okay. All right. So let's go into, this is the repo, run pubget, sure. Don't know if that's going to break anything, but there it is. Not benchmarks. This is really hard to do on really magnified. Well, let's get rid of this on the side. We don't need that.
It is hard to do, isn't it? This is what I go through.
I know.
So there's
Hey, I'm on a live
illegible
stream every
text.
week too. Come on.
That's true. That's true. Do you guys share your screen that much on?
Simon does. Simon shares his screen all the time.
Yeah,
Okay, so
he
we got
does.
examples. And by the way, so also to keep parity, borrowed all the examples from Block that Felix wrote and rewrote them as BlocSignal. And you can get access on the website to both the old one and the new one. And I also took all the examples that Ruddy had in signals and rewrote those as BlocSignals, making some of them actually simpler. So pretty cool stuff. Let's see, Minesweeper, there we go. And so we'll go to the lib and we'll go to main.dart, see what we got here.
Whoa,
Why is that?
You just called that lib, which I guess makes sense because it's library.
Library. Yeah.
But everyone else calls it lib.
I know.
But it's not
it drives me nuts.
library, which
No,
I've never
it's always
thought
been
of
lib.
before.
Early Unix technology. Come on, that lib. We had user lib and man and bin.
Well, man for sure.
I mean,
Nobody else says anything
and
other
bin
than
for
man.
sure. But lib, no, lib has always been the name.
But bin,
Right.
shouldn't that then be bine?
No, because
Why not? The
This-
same
yeah.
thing.
No, it isn't.
Yes,
It's
it
not.
is.
Founding fathers said you heard Henry Ritchie said this is called bin and this is called lib.
Okay, so are you GIF or GIF?
It depends. I try not to say it. I probably just type it. It's GIF.
That is the
Okay,
spelling.
so Minesweeper again. Shared preferences, shared preference hydrated storage. So we've got a game block signal and we've got a block signal provider, and it creates a game block signal. Let's look at that first. So again, it's got Minesweeper state initial. So Minesweeper state is part of the state. That's the state it's carrying. If state value status is game playing or timer is greater than 0, then start the timer. So there's a timer, of course, because you're going to count down to make sure you do moves within enough minutes or whatever.
Is that part of Minesweeper? I don't remember that.
Apparently, hey, I didn't know Minesweeper either. I just had anti-gravity go out and look up the rules. So this is all built. I had incredible creative input, but I had absolutely no factual input for much of any of this. So that's been the fun part.
For the Minesweeper demo specifically, what creative input did you have? Because it sounds like you don't even know what Minesweeper is.
I've played it only a couple times, and I'm really bad at it. Yes, right. I don't have much. Anyway, so here's the on event, and this is done with switch case. So again, it's exhaustive, and it's calling all these other events there, right? So that works nice, and of course you also have to call super on event. And so it does have a from JSON because the Minesweeper state is 4 or 5 parameters. Let's actually go see what it looks like. It's the difficulty, the grid, the lifecycle status, and the timer amount. So that's what's getting hydrated over and over again, right? Uh, let's see. So it's using a from JSON switch. I like doing it this way because I see too many people put like a map right here, and then if you ended up with a list or a scalar, it would blow up right there. Whereas with this switch, it's just going to return null because it means it's not the right shape. So I like this a lot better doing it that way. And then two JSONs the other direction. That's actually pretty simple. That actually probably could have been the default, but who cares? I'm not worried about that right now. And then, of course, reset does the reset, tick timer. That's the timer clicking on. And again, here's these emits with copy widths. Again, standard block stuff. Really nothing unusual there.
Pretty standard, really.
Yeah. And there's the complex stuff of figuring out whether you died or did other things.
Martin has a question here that I was kind of wondering about as well. He says, what are you talking about returning null? What does null do for us?
Minesweeper state is unknowable, and if it's null, it creates a brand new state.
So this would be
so like if we can't fetch it. Yeah. If we fail to fetch it.
Something out of shared preferences, but you have a new data model now, so you just throw away the old.
Right. There's no migration here. No, I'm not putting version numbers and crap in there. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
It would be
so anyway,
maybe a little over engineered.
The rest of the code's pretty much this is all the this is game state, so this is model code. But let's see. So let's look at some of this stuff. Let's look at the widgets. So we've got the board widget. So BlocSignal builder to rebuild the grid dynamically, right? So here's BlocSignal builder. And this is going to get triggered whenever the BlocSignal emits another state. That's where the state is. And then it gets stuff other state grid, state difficulty. Again, nothing unusual. Once we get the mechanism, where we have the data that's observable, everything else is just going to be normal code. But the key is that it's a signal underneath. Now, let me show you a couple of the other examples because a couple of the other examples actually kind of drive this home a little bit better. Let's take a shopping cart. Okay, so let's go.
I like to go shopping.
Shopping cart. So here's a stacked BlocSignal. I think this was that's the kind of the crappy way of doing it. Oh no, it's material. It's a build. It's not bad. Okay. Load catalog qubit. Yeah. Pretty straightforward stuff. Models. Let's see what the model looks like. So standard item. We have to have equality with equals and hash code. That could be, there's actually a note somewhere that says this could be, this could be package equitable if you wanted to instead.
Wow. Okay. Mutable. Equitable? Equatable? Randall, we got to get on the same page on some of these pronunciations. Equitable?
It's pronunciation. No.
Also, though, pointing these out, like, I'm so sorry to everyone who's had to learn English as a second language. Why would pronounce become pronunciate? Why? Why did we do that to ourselves?
There's too many of those. Don't make me get started. Anyway, but yeah, I think what I'm really trying to say is this package is already mature in the sense that I'm at 1.0. Everything is tested. Everything is documented. We have skills. We have those 10 packages already. It's ready to try. It's ready to run with. And especially with the AI skills, you can drop in. Oh, let's get interop. Let's look at the skills because the skills show me a few things that are fun. Skills are in the plugin directory.
Interop with what? Like the other
statement,
like Riverpod?
Riverpod. Yeah. So let's see. Skills, BlocSignal. So interop. And let me pop this into the right mode here so you can read it easier.
I like reading the markdown version of a table, personally.
Really? Oh, now you're goofing with me. Okay, got it. But oh, jeez, fell for that one. All right, but so here's the things we interrupt with. I mean, it's morning. So we can do streams. We can do, and it goes both directions on all of these. As you can see, it's hard to do the whole scroll thing. But RiverPod, we just simply take a RiverPod provider and put 2 BlocSignal on it, and that captures it as a BlocSignal, and I can then plop it in anywhere in my BlocSignal framework. Or if I have the other way, I've got a BlocSignal or a qubit signal, I can go to provider, and that's now a consumable provider listenable that RiverPod can use anywhere. So you've got complete interop. You could migrate one RiverPod provider at a time, or one block at a time to BlocSignal, and it would still work.
Love that for us.
Yeah. Hooks. We've got interoperability with Flutter hooks, and because Rody already had single hooks. So let's. Oh, we already passed the other app, but yeah. So we've got that kind of thing too. And custom equality support. Then there's little detailed text about how you convert one thing to the other, so that the AI can figure out what to do to make those interactions. BlocSignal to value listenable, like if you want to pull it in on that Go router thing, how do you convert it across? Pretty cool stuff. And I came up with this idea of changing planes in Chicago, but like changing planes BlocSignal. So if you want to go from provider through BlocSignal to RiverPod, you can do it. And so you take a provider and put it into RiverPod provider.
With enough of these daisy chained together, we can make
rule the world.
This code totally opaque, so that nobody has any idea what it's doing.
Right.
It's like a hashing function.
But here's what the Jasper stuff has. So we've got all these same named things, but you can use them in Jasper, and they manage components.
Oh, it's so great. I love, by the way, it was quite funny a second ago. You were like, oh, yeah, there's also hooks. It's like, I forgot.
Right.
I forgot that anti-gravity did that.
Yes, right. That's true. And here's the block to BlocSignal key one. Because I figure that most of the people that are going to be interested in this are already coming from Block, because it is really
like a good bet.
Functional replacement. It's not a one-to-one replacement. I think it even says that right at the beginning here. But the thing is, you can do a progressive rewrite because we can talk blocks into BlocSignals and BlocSignals into blocks. We can always map them back and forth as we need to do. Like here's a legacy block. We say stream to BlocSignal, and now we have an initial state for that. And we can also consume it the other way. We can go in the other direction. But this gives all the details for the AI. The AI wrote all this, so I guess it's the right stuff for it. Oh, I didn't write any of this. I've got to say, my performance
Hopefully it's correct.
Is like 10 to 20x. Well, the thing I like is that it has been using this stuff to do all these other porting stuff for me. So obviously it's working.
Interesting question here, Randall. I have thoughts.
Sure.
On this. I mean, and I'm curious about what you'd say as well. So Ulker asks a question about how you guys or gals use emit in async block code. Do you send loaded data in the next event to emit them, or just emit in the same event? So imagine, we've got to make a network request, load some data. When do you call emit? How do you handle this?
There is an example of that, actually.
Lovely.
The async example. Where's async? I remember seeing that somewhere. Block currency.
Flutter async. Up.
Flutter async.
There it is.
Yeah. There we go. Now we don't need this thing. Go away. Okay. So I think the key is, it's up here somewhere. Not there yet. So here, emitting async loading. So the way we're handling async is similar to how RiverPod does it. So there is an async state there's an async signal and an async state for async signals in the signals package. And we're just leaning on that. So we're using async loading, and we'll update it with an emit to when we have the actual data. We wait for the future there, and if it fails, we emit an async error or emit the data. So it's very similar to what RiverPod does in terms of handling that.
And
but
zooming
keeping
out,
in mind that this will be synchronous, though. So it means if I'm doing an add, it comes into this code, it immediately emits the async loading on that phase. So you're not waiting cycles to get to there. Yeah.
Which again, I think is mostly going to simplify tests. And your app is probably going to behave the same way. But simplifying tests is a very big win.
The minor amount of time it's spending doing emits is that's almost why I'm almost embarrassed to say that I even wrote a benchmark. But I just didn't want to make sure that we're not like 100 times slower, and we're not.
Right.
We're twice as fast.
Which is also if getting rid of micro tasks made you slower, you're like, huh? So zooming out on this question about just how you emit states on an async thing, I think that largely depends on whether or not this was a user originated event, like a thing. If the user clicks a button to load data, then you probably, can you go back to that method that you had there, Randall, in the block that was, where you were immediately emitting load async or loading or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, here. Okay, so on line 52, he's emitting async loading. And I imagine that this is so that the UI can update and give the user immediate affordance that their button click worked. So they're not just sitting there, click, 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 if the API is slow. So if the user did something first, then I think you do want to call emit ahead of your await. Then you await loading your data, and then you return the data, just like you see in this method. If it's just like a background thing, then you don't need to emit anything necessarily before the await.
Yeah, that makes sense. And there's also there's other examples. I'm trying to figure out where it might have been because I know I've seen it before. The signature for .on and .on event is async, async future void. So that means that if something happens to compute the emitted value, it can return a future at that point, and that will automatically cycle through the loading data and possibly error states. So that's already managed. So if in your on handler, the on handler signature can be async, and it can return a future, and then the right thing happens.
Can you show that? Like you would return... Oh, okay. I think I'm piecing this together in my head. I haven't used any automagic around the three states like that. So in the function there, fetch user, it's not future void. You're saying that could... No, actually, I'm not quite following because you emit, you don't return. So... Like the whole point of a handler in a block universe is to call emit. It's not to return anything. So can you expand more about this? You can return a future and it'll do everything correctly.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where my other repo went. Let's see, T Control R takes me to the right place. Yeah.
I see you have that async data wrapper. Is that part of it? But you're still emitting that.
Yeah, well, let me do this. Let's see here. Where is my mean code gone? Oh, terminal's there. That's why, because I'm in different modes. Get rid of that window. There we go. Back. Okay. Can you show an example of it taking 2 seconds delayed when a button is pressed by returning a future from the emit? There. No, wait for it to finish it.
Yeah.
There. Emit future delay.
Oh, it's on event, which you were saying, but I wasn't parsing.
And there's the async. So that could be either out here before the switch, or it could be as one of the elements of the switch. And in fact, I can tell you that too.
Yeah, it's
Also,
interesting. So you're not returning
reset
anything here. This is
2
just
more seconds. The emit is taking a value, yes. And if the emit, well, the fact that it's async means it's going to have to wait before any of these get updated. Okay, now it's working that out here. Okay. Oh,
well, that's not how I thought it was going to do that.
Yeah, that's right. I
That's
am
not what you were going for.
trying to show that the emit can return a future.
Randall, you can just type in the file since
No, I
you
can't.
know what
No, I
you
can't.
want.
No, I can't. I
You
pay a lot for
can.
this.
You can. Randall, ask Gemini to explain the sunk cost fallacy to you, because in all of your wisdom, you have apparently failed to internalize the sunk cost fallacy.
It's not running. Oh, pending messages. Oh,
If only there was another way. Well, what do the rest of us want to talk about while Randall refuses to just type the line of code in the file?
Well, I want to make sure it's an accurate line of code.
I thought you've been doing this for 40 years, Randall.
Well, not Dart. See, yeah, now it's still doing that. Okay, never mind then.
We're just our hands are tied.
Because it's hydrated.
We can't type
Hydrated
anything.
can't do the async thing. Yes. What? Yeah, hands are tied, right? Anyway, so the problem is because of the hydration. Remove the hydration. And I did this yesterday as a rehearsal, and apparently it remembers all the previous versions. So actually, I could just say roll it back to just before that one. Okay, so now we're to BlocSignal. It's still not doing what I want to do. Okay, well, let me just type here. You're right.
Oh, praise be.
So let's see. We want future delayed to then a future value. No, let's see. Future delayed. See, I'm stymied. Anyway, but I've seen code that does it. I just haven't remember how to do that. So I don't want to get it wrong either.
I mean, we might be able to just look at where on event is called, because that would certainly have to do something with the response.
Yes, there we go. That's a good plan. So super on event right there. See there. So you get a handler for the right thing, right? And then it matches. Okay, it's got the registry handler. If the result is future, see, there's where it goes. It's adding all the futures together to do one big wait if there's any futures. So that's where if you return a future, that's the code it lands up in.
Wait. Okay, hold up. So this is the super version of on event. It's not what calls on event.
Right.
I was wondering where on event is called, because this isn't doing any 3-state stuff like you were saying. Yeah, references. Yeah. I spent too many formative years in PHP and then Python where go to references is not always possible because of the level of runtime metaprogramming. And so I never use go to references ever, to my great detriment. And I really need to incorporate that.
I bet it's in
this
signals.
one, yeah,
that's calling an event. Oh, if the result future, then handle the async result. And
okay, so yeah,
let's
look at.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood you, because I thought what you were saying is that it would put you in a loading state and then it would resolve and then it would, but it would also catch the error. But I think I misheard you, because it's kind of not doing the full 3-state juggling for you. If you want to have 3-state juggling which is, loading data error, then
Yeah.
you kind of do that yourself, which is fine. I would expect to do that myself, but I think I misunderstood something you were saying at some point.
Well, I know that I've played with future signals, and I thought it was using some of that in here. I don't see it right there, though. And handle async result. Okay. Yeah. So
I mean, in some sense, for it to even know what loading means, your state class would probably have to conform to some pattern as well. Like there would be, I think,
that's what's happening. So when the signal dot value is called, because it's a async state rather than a standard state, it actually waits for the future, and if it's still future, it's going to return back async loading. If it's already got data, then it's async data. So that is where it is. It's in the dot value of a future signal.
So I think, all right, this is interesting, and I've got about 10 more minutes here because when this stream is done, I have to go to the airport.
Sure.
So quickly, I don't think I know what async loading and async data are. What are those classes?
They're elements of. Well, the names are copied from RiverPod directly, so that it started as a RiverPod thing. But Rody re-implemented it. Yeah, Rody re-implemented it for signals, and we also have a mapper that actually goes from one to the other if you want. So that's part of our RiverPod compatibility package. Async loading is the state of an incomplete future.
Okay.
Async data is when it completed with a good value. Async error is when it completed by throwing.
Okay.
We returned a future error, basically. Yeah. And so the mapping from those future states down to a concrete class of async state is handled not here. It's handled by the signals framework.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So does the concept of async state or loading or data or error, do those bleed into your UI? Like, does your UI have to become aware of those things?
Yes, you can say .state is loading. That's built into those async state functions.
I see. Got it. So it's a wrapper class around whatever your state, and then you do like .value or whatever, or .state for the actual state.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I see. Well, that's actually nice.
So, what do you think?
All right. Well, I think this is cool, and I do think I'm going to try to give it a whirl. I like this. I have always felt like writing tests that involve streams is basically my least favorite part of Flutter development.
Yes, that's part of what scared me away as well from Block.
The thing is, I like streams in the actual code where they're used.
Right.
There, I like streams. I think they're cool. I think they add a lot. It's nice. The stream transformers. If you're never transforming your streams, then you could just pass a callback. Like it's very likely that if you don't use any of the stream magic, then you probably didn't need to use the stream at all. But the block package uses a lot of the stream magic to dedupe for you and whatnot. So I like streams. I don't like writing tests for streams. So this is, I think, a really nice improvement there.
Right. And I think, just to bring it back home, I think that what I've done is appropriately glued together both, like I said at the beginning, the rigor of Block, the fact that there are known patterns, tested, production tested ways of using blocks and qubits.
Yep.
And the flexibility of signals is such that you could put something here and watch it over there. And it's like, you need some rigor in an organization. It's great for small little apps to just use signals by themselves. But I think this is going to give people an in to be able to have the productivity of having signals, which are interoperable with everything else in the Flutter universe, in the Dart universe. Yeah, and by the way, this all works in Dart too. I mean, except for the Flutter packages. Some of the package doesn't work in Dart.
Presume Hydrate might be challenging in
Right,
outside
no
of
shared
Flutter.
preferences. Yeah, right, right. Except that the hide rate, you can plug in your own
Storage
hydration mechanism.
mechanism. Yeah. Yeah.
So you can use in Dart as well for that. But I think I've never quite been as excited about state management as I have been for the last few weeks, just because I think this solves so many problems that I've had in the past. And I would suggest taking an app that uses Provider or Riverpod or Block and just telling, Gemini, convert this using those skills
Yeah.
and take a look at it, see how different it is. I mean, I demonstrated, 5 or 6 different versions of that today.
Yep.
But yeah, check it out. And I also have 13 Dev2 articles already, Dev2 / Randal Schwartz, like how to handle forms, how to do interop easily, sort of just the general introduction to what it all is about. Yeah, I've got like about 20 more Dev2 stories ready to write. I've been coming up with topics as I'm busy fleshing out the ecosystem. So this has just been really exciting. And I now know that any conference coming up, I've got to talk for it now. I've got
So you're going to be back on the circuit, is what you're telling us.
I will. Naturally, and making more videos as soon as I get some more videos. And Dev2s were easy because you could just tell Gemini, put it in the format for Dev2, and it goes, okay, and it puts the header on, plop it right in. And the only thing I have to be is creative about what to name the prompt I use for the image that goes with it. And the prompts are always related to the story, but they involve BlocSignal somehow.
Well, yeah, you got your train motif.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for working on this. On the thumbnail, I put a little cheeky, what was it? YASMP, I think, yet another state management package.
Yeah.
But
of course, people quoted that XKCD standards video at me, frame at me a lot. And I go, yeah, I didn't want to be just another thing. That's why I made it so interoperable. I made it like, this thing glues everything together, so yeah.
Well, maybe that means you have actually made the one standard to rule them all and finally falsified the comic.
Right. And I leave issues, please. Test it out. Leave some issues. I'm pretty fast at cycling those. I got Jules warning me when there's an issue. So yeah, please do that.
All right. Amazing. Yeah. Well, folks, this has been a fun episode, at least in my mind. Hopefully yours as well, on BlocSignal. I'll be a little dancing dash. Next week, I'm going to be in Atlanta speaking at Render ATL. So there will be no stream next week. But then I think I'm actually home for multiple weeks in a row. So we might get into some kind of groove again. But that will do it for today. Randal, any final thoughts?
I'm just thinking this is just enough block and just enough signal.
All right. Amazing. Well, folks, until next time, happy fluttering.